Welcome to the Aesthetics Injector Gang podcast. Having a gang of mentors in this industry has been a blessing that we wanted to share with you. Our core group has been traveling together and comparing notes about life and business for years. Tune in as we delve into topics with others in the industry that you are sure to love and make you laugh.
All right, welcome back to the next episode of the Aesthetics Injector Gang podcast. We're very happy that you're tuning in again, and today we have a very special guest with us. It is Dr. Michael Somenek. He is a double board certified facial plastic surgeon here in the Washington, D.C. area, along with myself, Ashley Carmen, nurse practitioner, owner, founder of Ayana Atelier. Today we have Dr. Somenek. He received his medical degree from Rush University Medical Center in Chicago, started Somenek and Pittman Advanced Plastic Surgery here in the area about 6 years ago, I think now, right? Yeah. It is an upscale concierge plastic surgery practice. Him and his partner, Dr. Troy Pittman, see a variety of body and facial plastics. They also recently, I guess not recently now, about a year and a half ago, opened up S&P Med Spa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Year and a half?
I can't believe it.
I know.
It's so crazy.
Wild. It goes so fast. He is the author also of many peer-reviewed journal articles, textbook chapters. His list goes on and on and on and on about his qualifications. And I am most honored to add to that repertoire of things as his friend. So Dr. Somenek and I met about 7 years ago, actually, which is wild to me. Crazy. You run like a little one
by,
room
right?
down the hall. Yeah, it has really flown by. And looking at like where I think we both are now, it's crazy.
Yeah, when you met me, I was renting 2 rooms. It was basically a broom closet. When I started my practice for like the first year before I expanded right down the hall to a 1,200 square foot office. And now we have almost the entire floor.
The entire floor, and
dreams can come true.
And also your new venture.
Yes, New York City.
Yeah, hey.
I know. We'll talk about that.
City of Wonder. I love it. So, Dr. Somenek, what do you want to talk about today?
I was thinking, since I am the first basically plastic surgeon to be on this.
Yes, you are indeed a plastic surgeon.
So it's a little bit of a different approach with how we collaborate and how we share patients.
Yeah.
And I think it can be somewhat of a dicey gamble for some. And I think some get nervous referring out because they're scared to lose that patient.
Absolutely. I feel like I've heard that so many times. Like I train a lot of like new providers so I do private training at Ayana Atelier in Alexandria, Virginia. And then I also am faculty for Galderma and Allergan and Ebolas, much like you.
Yes, you've been teaching the world, honey.
Teaching, and I love it. But I hear it all the time. People are always like, I don't know how to refer out. I don't know who to refer to. I tried referring in the past and they stole my patient. And I feel like I've heard it all. So, and I think we have such a really unique relationship that I very much cherish. So you've taken really good care of a lot of patients of mine that I've sent. And I think for, injectors, it's when you're not working in a plastic surgery setting, I think it's very important to have those very honest conversations with your patients. Like you are doing a consult, and you've got the patient that comes in, that their eyelids are hanging down to their chin and they hate their profile and they're like ready to dump thousands in your chair. And it's like taking that step back and doing what's best for the patient, being like, we're going to have a real consult here, but before we do anything, including talks even sometimes, I want you to go have a consult with a plastic surgeon. And then I give them your name. And very, very frequently, I think they probably call you before they're even in their car. I was very fortunate to work for plastics, and because of our relationship, I've learned a lot over the years as well. So I try pretty hard to tee them up nicely for you so that they're medical candidates and they know what to expect. And, and I'm always kind of like, you just got to find the person that works for you. But when they come in, kind of what does that look like once they're in your hands?
Well, I think that there's a couple of things that before I go into that I think are really helpful for people that are struggling with that referral issue. And one of them is to develop a relationship, kind of like you alluded to, which we've had a strong relationship, but it didn't start overnight. We had to meet each other.
Yeah.
We had to develop a sense of trust with one another. And for you to develop a sense of trust for me, that I would take care of your patients, I would deliver on the result that you and your patient were both looking to achieve. And you needed to experience that before you allowed yourself to okay, yeah, this is working out. And also, I make a point with anybody that refers, they know that those patients are coming back to them.
Yeah.
They have my word. And if there's any sort of confusion in the future, my expectation is for whoever referred them to call me and be like, what's going on? This and this happened. It doesn't happen because I'm very cognizant of maintaining that relationship moving forward.
Right.
And for me, as the surgeon, sometimes what will happen is I'll do the surgery and the patient will be like, I just want to get everything done here now. And it can be uncomfortable for someone who doesn't know how to deal with that. And I'm very frank. I say, listen, I have a really good relationship with Ashley, and I trust her as your injector, and I would like for you to continue that with her. And they understand that.
Yeah.
And they respect me more for that, for saying that.
I will say that they definitely do, because when they do come back to me, it's always like, well, I tried to have everything done there, but he told me just to come back to you. And I was like, well, hold on. Like, I very much appreciate that he sent you back, but if you're not happy with me, you by all means can please go see him. It's fine. But no, they do. It is very much a respect thing. And it's I think it comes on both ends where they I think they kind of blindly take the referral sometimes, because for me to say that and to tell them no. I think there's a lot of power in telling patients no.
You're right. And I think some of the best injectors out there understand when to say, this is surgical.
Yep.
And like you said, sometimes when you're starting out and the patient's ready to dump a boatload of money in that seat, and you just are like, how can I turn that down?
Yeah.
And it has to bring back to your value system.
Absolutely.
Of what your goal is with that person in your chair. And is your goal to give them the best result? And if it is, you got to know when to refer out. And that's tough to do when you're first starting out and struggling.
It definitely is. And I think I think you definitely hit the nail on the head there. It's kind of staying true to your true north, and what made you want to open a practice in general, what made you want to get into aesthetics in the first place. And if your eyes kind of always on the prize at doing the best for the patient and creating that long-term relationship with a patient, just like you would a friend, every single encounter is an investment in the next one and the next one and the next one. And I've found over the years, I've been fortunate to be doing this a while. I guess a little over 7 years now. Not looking a day over 30 though, hopefully.
No, same.
But yeah, it's been a keystone, I think, in the longevity of my career. I don't know.
Also, I'm thinking of just someone who's listening and they're starting out in an area that they may not be totally familiar with. You may not develop a relationship overnight.
Yeah.
And it may be a couple trial and errors.
Yeah.
Because you may be like, oh, I'll send you to this person. And then they may not have the best experience, in which case you may want to reevaluate and take it back a little bit. But it may take a little bit to develop a rapport with somebody. It certainly did for me to develop relationships in this area for people to refer to me. Because you can't just show up at somebody's doorstep and be like, I'm great. Send me patients. Who are you? What are you? And so there's a relationship building that needs to go into this.
Yeah, I think for those new providers out there, I think kind of my best piece of advice is, aside from staying very honest with your patients, is try make yourself really vulnerable. And it's hard. As an injector and a nurse practitioner or a registered nurse, it's very hard to walk into a plastics office and be like, I want to develop a relationship with you. Can I shadow with you a little bit? Can I do this? Can I how can we learn? How can I learn from you so that I can send you patients? Like, I don't do surgery. Like,
Right.
I don't. I need to send them somewhere. And I think, for us, it was a little bit different because we met as friends first.
Yeah,
And
we had a personality.
Yeah. So it just kind of evolved naturally. And, you're brilliant. So.
Oh, well, thank you.
Of course.
But I think that, when the patient comes to me, coming back to your original question, it's a little bit of a different approach when I see a patient that comes from an injector or even a dermatologist, quite frankly, because they both are getting injectables. Absolutely. It's a little bit more of history taken of like, when was the last injectable? When were your fillers injected? How much filler? And the great thing about referrals is I could always call you if I'm like, what's going on with this patient?
Like, they're a terrible historian. They think
they said they never had filler, and I can tell they had filler. So there's anything like that going on, but you really want to know what's in their face if you're going to consider them a surgical candidate, because you don't want to be surprised, not just with an HA or with calcium hydroxyapatite or Sculptra or any other collagen stimulators out there. And so it does involve a little bit more history taking with them to just make sure that you're going to reduce their incidence of complications. If it's a neck lift, not so much for blephs, because other than lower blephs with filler these days.
Oh yeah, how are the lower blephs post filler? That's a nice transition. Look at that seamlessly happened.
I know, it's like I've done this, but no, it can be multifactorial. And that's where the history comes in, because if they do have filler, it's a mandatory dissolving before their surgery, just because it will minimize, for me, any post-operative weird swelling or weirdness that goes on, because I'm usually lasering them as well.
Yeah. Do you find that you're dissolving a lot in the OR?
Not in the OR. Okay. So what we do is we build in like a pre-op visit 2 weeks before their surgery. I dissolve them then.
Okay.
And if there's like the slightest hint of filler left on that day, I usually don't touch it. I just leave it alone. Yeah. And then it all seems to work out because it's usually pretty minimal at that point, thankfully.
Yeah, thank goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, but the HAs, and the under eyes, they're beautiful when they are, but then.
And then sometimes they're just
sometimes they're not, and that's okay.
And that's okay. And that's, if any of my patients are listening, that's why 9 out of 10 of you get told no on a routine basis.
Yeah, right. And that's why the syringes are getting smaller for under eye injections.
Yeah, it's like, thank God they got smaller.
To try and push us to inject less and less, which is wonderful.
Yeah, easy. It's like gone are the days of just like filling it like it's grout.
Yeah, right.
Like, terrible. Let's talk on another touch point that you hit, which was Sculptra facelifts, lifts, hyperdilate radius, all the things. I feel like it's a hot topic lately.
Well, I feel like you and I are on the same page in terms of loving collagen stimulation in general.
Yeah, I'm like, you're gonna have to take it out of my cold, dead hands.
Yes, if it goes. Yes, I think it plays such a role in both of our practices, and I complements our HAs. Doesn't replace them fully, but it complements them so beautifully. And there's been a little bit of press, as you and I have seen recently, with some neck lift surgeons maybe discussing Sculptra, mostly Sculptra, not being the greatest in preparation for facelift, potentially adding to complications. And I mean, I can safely say I don't have any problems with Sculptra post facelift.
Yeah, I think like even when Sculptra first kind of really came to be like 6 or 7 years ago, I remember like reaching out to you and being like, hey, so
I remember.
Like what is this doing in the OR? What are we okay? How's everything going? Because I do practice independently, and it's always one of those things, like I kind of keep it in my back pocket. Like I try not to do anything that I can't fix myself. And sometimes, that's a big reason why I'm not like a huge thread practice, right? Because it's like when things go wrong, it typically is a surgical removal, and it's not. And I'm not doing that in my office. So
yeah, I do feel though like it's all relative. Sometimes the tissue will be that much more dense, which that's kind of what you want with a collagen stimulator. It's denser in collagen, so it may take a little bit longer to develop the plane for the facelift. But post-operatively, I haven't had any issues with it. I've yanked threads out of faces during a facelift that just did not dissolve, that were old.
Yeah.
but haven't had, thankfully, any of that. And also, to the contrary, I will usually let my patients heal for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And if they are just an organic patient of mine, I will get them on a sculpture regimen.
Yep.
Or I will send them back to their referring doctor and encourage them to ask them to start doing sculpture on them. Because that, for me, maintains the facelift result more than anything.
Yeah.
So I start them on that, and I do an initiation of 1 or 2 treatments, and then I kind of do it every 6 or 12 months for them, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So that is one of the things. And then the other thing that I think that you and I talk about every once in a while is the differences between hyperdilute radius and Sculptra, and when you're incorporating them into your daily practice.
Yeah.
Why? The big why.
The big why. Everyone's like, why would you pick one over the other?
Right. It's a big question.
It is a big question. What's your simple answer? There is no simple answer.
Okay, so my simple answer is that I will usually start many patients off on Sculptra.
Same.
And we know that the mechanisms of action are just a touch different with both products. Just a touch, but enough for me to say it's something different that I'm introducing into the face or the body or wherever you're injecting it.
Yep.
That's hopefully going to stimulate it in a different way, or just keep the skin and the dermis and the fibroblasts on their toes. So sometimes I'll do 2 Sculptra, 1 hyperdilute, or maybe I'll do 2 hyperdilute and 1 Sculptra.
Yep.
Because I think they both have a role. And I think we all need, similar to like switching out your skincare products, I think it's good to switch out the collagen stimulator. So that's my logic. And on any given day, I might be using hyperdilute, or I might be using Sculptra for a patient.
Where do you find like PRF falling in there for like biostimulation?
I am not a huge PRF user. And it's not that I don't believe in the science of it, because I had used it previously with PRP.
Yep.
And that's when I was injecting under eyes with it.
Yeah.
And I just am not a big injector to the under eyes with it, because I don't find, at least for my patients, that it gives them the sustainability that they're looking for a result.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the big takeaway for my patients that I'm educating them is the PRF is something that you kind of just incorporate in with your tox. Like it's
like
something
an additive.
Yeah, you're just kind of like, okay, I'm going to come in every 3 to 4 months, get my tox, get a chemical peel, get my under eyes with some PRF, and walk out, and that's it. And then in 4 months, I'm going to do it again, and then again and again and again. But it is something that's, I don't think, very long term. Whereas like, filler and biostimulators are giving you so much more like long term. So I think that makes it a little bit less appealing for patients.
Yeah.
The price point tends to be pretty good for most places that I know. So I think that might be the short term appeal. And I'm always kind of like, why don't we just like toe dip with this? See how you like that.
Yeah.
Make sure, because it's kind of like you're trying to stimulate a biostimulation in the short term.
Yeah.
Because there is kind of like the longevity buy-in with hyperdilate radius and Sculptra, right? Where like you do it and you look great for a few hours, and then everything kind of absorbs
really
and
amazing.
you feel amazing. And then it all kind of goes away, and you're like, oh, I'm back. And then you have to wait for it to come back. So, but it does come back. It grows back.
Yeah, having done, I think I've done 3 Sculptras and 2 hyperdilutes on myself on the face.
Yeah.
And yes, you go through that first night where you go to dinner and your face is popping.
Yeah.
And you're feeling really good about life, maybe even the next morning. And then you kind of go back to your baseline, but you start seeing long-term some really positive results. And I didn't need to do it on myself to prove it to myself. I just knew I needed to do it because I was doing it to everybody else but myself. So, but the great thing about, I think, our field, which can be great and overwhelming at the same time, is that everyone's aesthetic journey is different.
Yeah.
And so you have patients that love the neuromodulator, the PRF, and maybe a little touch of HA every once in a while on their face. And that's kind of, it gets them through. And then you have the patients that need some of the bigger guns.
Yeah.
To give them the result that they want.
Yeah, I always love the ones that come in and they like walk in the door and it's like you can just feel it. Like I know there's nothing that I'm going to be able to do. Like I'm like, you need to, and I don't ever mean it like meanly, right? But it's just like there's so much out there on social media, right? And there's so many like filters and gatekeeping and the olive oil and the horseback riding and the, like all this nonsense. Like Martha Stewart got a new haircut last week and she was like showing it off. I'm like, okay, and you're going to credit your face and neck surgeon when? Because like your nightgown didn't do that.
Right.
Like,
Totally.
it really is not. But they come in and they think like, oh, just 20 units of tox is going to be,
right.
And it's going to be a game changer. And I'm going to walk out looking like J-Lo. And it's like, J-Lo doesn't even look like J-Lo going to bed. So,
it's all about expectation management with all of this. And I think we both deal with that. The one thing I learned a couple of years ago, it took me a while because I've been in practice now for 11 years. And I would say the last 2 years, I've been very cognizant of the fact if I have a patient in my chair who doesn't smile at all during the consultation, they will not get treated by me. I will, but with surgically, I'll do a little injectables on them and kind of feel them out. But I will find that even if they get the best result, they look beautiful.
Yeah.
They still can't crack a damn smile being happy about their life.
Yeah. As you're saying this, I have like my photo album clicking through my head of the patients, and I'm like, yeah, I probably should have said.
You have the carousel going, running
like,
actively.
It's just actively running around.
And it is a real psychological phenomenon. So I've been burned by a few of those, not because they've gotten a bad result, because they're just not happy with their life.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not going to make them happy. So it's allowed me to develop a different relationship with patients, understanding that concept, and also like helping me sleep better at night.
Absolutely. Right. My God.
Because I don't have someone terrorizing me over nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, the sleep at night. I don't think I've slept since I started aesthetics.
Well, you certainly are faking it because you don't have a wrinkle on your face.
That's thanks to toxic PRF. So a lot of other things, a lot of medical grade skincare and all the things. So our next quick topic here with Dr. Somenek and his extensive repertoire on his resume is how to kind of really take that next step as an educator. Because I think what I hear a lot from neuro providers, they're so grateful for the training. And oh my gosh, like when I started, I feel like, we always joke that like you shouldn't learn how to do things on YouTube, but like honestly, like 7, 8, 9 years ago, we just didn't have the training. Like, thank God for like the Korean guy that I was watching on YouTube with subtitles. And I mean, and then everything kind of like led from there. And you're able to make like human connections in person and finally get some like training from real people. But I think, the training aspect of both of our jobs has been pretty big. Your major platform, international and national, several companies, tons of peer-reviewed journals, textbook articles, chapters, like you have a ton of educating experience. And I think, for people who are really looking to get into aesthetics as a provider, but really more so those like natural educators that are out there. Because I will certainly say that I did not intend to be an educator in this arena. And it kind of surprised me when the first person reached out and was like, hey, I want to learn with you. I was like, why? And I'm still kind of surprised. I get those calls and it's like, why do you want to hear what I have to say? But, everyone's tuning in now listening to what we're talking about. And one day I'll figure it out, but.
Absolutely. Well, I think that there's so many. I started teaching, training, educating probably 2.5, almost like 3 years into practicing.
Right.
So I didn't just start right away because I didn't really know anything. I had to learn additional things. It's a really bad idea. But I think that the foundation of it is you have to want to do it.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be an educator, don't try and get into it because you're not going to be good at it. It's not going to be a passion of yours. It truly is a passion of mine where I love engaging, educating people, empowering people to become the best version of themselves. And whether that's giving a lecture and having them listen to it, giving an on-site training. Yeah. And so whether or not I'm like on podium and I'm doing a presentation, live injections, etc., I do have people come up to me every once in a while. Frequently it's at facial plastic surgery conferences and some just like general conferences. Right. And so all kinds of will come up to me, not just surgeons, and say like, I'm newer to this field. How do I get into this?
Yeah.
Or I want to be a speaker too. So those are the more annoying people.
Yeah.
Because I always think like, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
You know, I didn't just like jump up on the stage one day and
Right.
start talking.
Right.
It is a little bit of a rite of passage. There are certain steps that you have to take to almost prove yourself that you
it's kind of like
are
earning the stripes.
yeah, that you are worthy to educate others.
Yeah.
So they have to see that you have a skill set.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't know who you are, similar to what we talked about referrals earlier, they're not going to just throw you up on stage. They don't know if you're a loose cannon that's going to be like, yeah, take this filler and put it in the earlobes. Like, no, that's off label. Yeah. So I think that you need to engage with certain companies, certain educational platforms, and demonstrate your ability. Mm-hmm. Once you're able to do that, and you also have in your inner core that you want to do this, I think it will organically happen, but you also have to campaign for it a little bit.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to
kind of like,
I know, it does sound so, there's so much of the specialty that really like grinds my gears sort of, and that's part of it, because it's like you do have to really campaign for yourself a lot, and you have to put yourself in very vulnerable situations of like where you have a skill set, you're decent at what you do, you've got a full book, right, you're successful like on paper, but then it's like trying to kind of contact somebody and be like, hey, like I think I deserve to be talking about whatever it is that they're offering. And the simple answer is frequently they may say like, well, I've never heard of you. No. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll just keep trying.
You do have to be vulnerable. That is, I think that's so instrumental at the success of this. And if you're going to these conferences or networking events and sitting in the corner and hoping someone's going to come up to you, it ain't going to happen. You got to go and introduce yourself and put your best foot forward and put a smile on your face and say, I'm so-and-so. I'm really interested in doing this.
And for everyone listening who wants to do this, if you have extreme social anxiety like I do and cannot do those things, then you need to hire a practice manager who will do those things for you, because that is how I really got into all of it. Like, I mean, Brandon honestly was just out there like campaigning for me.
That's great.
And that worked so much better. Like, because then I could just say yes to opportunities. I didn't have to like go through the things that like make me insanely anxious and hot and sweaty and uncomfortable places and be in weird situations that I don't really enjoy. So
training and speaking are two different skill sets that don't always align with how you behave when you're one-on-one with your patients. So when you're on stage and you have 100 people staring at you, you do get a little schwitzy. And when you're first starting out, and when I think about my first time that I did something like that to today, it's almost like I have a little bit of embarrassment, and that's the whole shame component that I'm trying to shake off for 2024. But like, I was just learning. And when I've improved so much, but I've also worked on it.
I was gonna say, everybody's up there for the first time at some point, right?
You get the flop sweats. And there's a little bit of that imposter syndrome as well, but you got to work through it, and everyone's there to support you. That's what you have to. So anyway, I think our point of this is that there is a little bit of networking, a little bit of showing your skill set, a little bit of desire that you want to do this.
And I think a little bit of humble arrogance, if we can put that out there, because I think that it very much, like you walk into training scenarios or the main stage when you think it's going to be, a small group, and like I spoke at a dinner not too long ago, and it was supposed to be like intimate, thinking like 10 or 12 people, right? I walk in and there's like 60 people. I'm like, okay, well,
it's a relative term.
Just, can you give me 5 minutes? Thanks. And it's just kind of like a different mindset, but it does, I think there's never a situation that's like the exact same, which I think is what is kind of, you're a fellow Sag too. And I think it's like the natural, like dopamine hit is the aha moment, like for me. And then it's not repetitive. Like you can be talking about the same thing all the time, but it's still somehow not repetitive. So it never gets boring. And you're kind of just like, I don't know. I find it's very fulfilling to see. And also somebody's got to inject me when I'm old and blind. So
that's right. We need to train the youth so they can maintain our look as we get older.
I feel like it takes me back to the bedside days where I was like, oh, I got to train the next generation of ICU nurses because somebody's got to take care of me when I'm here. But no, I think there's a lot to be said for that. So with the trainings, I think one of the other big questions that I get is how do you do it, right? Like, how do you keep all the balls in the air? How do you run your office? How do you travel across the country all the time? Like, I think you were in Miami, like, I don't know, 12 hours ago or something like that. And then like, we're in the OR all day today, now doing a podcast with me. Like, it's kind of, I think, how do you stay sane? How do you keep it all together?
Oh, that is, we need to just start another podcast with this one because I think it's very, it's a fluid thing with me, and it's something that I'm still learning. And last year and the past couple of years, I've struggled with intermittently with getting too burned out. Yeah. Too burned out with taking too much on, plus trying to maintain this big practice, plus trying to do our marketing. Yep. And you kind of come to work sometimes, you're like, when's my day going to be over? And like, that's never a place to be. And so I've learned to, I'm doing a lot more reading in the evenings, not medical reading. I'm doing like my trash mystery novels. I'm watching Housewives. I'm putting my phone down when I watch TV. Yeah. And I'm not doing social media in the evenings. And so I get 2 hours of just decompression. And so that's how to manage the daily grind, but also sometimes working 4 days a week. Yeah. And you had DM'd me last week because you saw I was working the day after Christmas. You're like, oh my why? Gosh, I know, and I'm like, it's just a tough time of year for me right now, but I promise I'm going to be taking vacation. So you have to take the time to just, the mental health is huge. Yeah. And you don't want to get burned out so quickly, or you don't want to do this for the rest of your life because it's such a fulfilling profession.
Absolutely. I think there is so much longevity in it because there's so many different avenues. We've touched on several of them over the past 30 minutes and kind of talked about like teaching and educating and actually still being a provider and being in the OR and all of that. And it's a very rewarding specialty where it's like weird little subset of medicine that's still so small, but it feels so huge once you're in it, because you're like, it really can be decades long. When I think most people get into it thinking like, oh, I'll do it for a couple of years and like retire early or whatever. It's like, that's not like that would be nice, right?
Great. But that sounds great to all of us.
That sounds amazing to all of us, but let's be honest, none of us are going to retire ever.
But what do you do to keep staying? I mean,
a lot of, really to your point, honestly, a lot of it is really, I've tried, my husband's amazing, but trying to really be conscious of putting the phone down. You're, for better or worse, your husband is also a physician. And so it's kind of like, I've always wondered your like separation, like when do you just like not talk about work? But then I look at my own home life and if I'm not talking about it, I'm always thinking about it. So I might as well be talking about it. So it's like, I don't know. I'm kind of that natural workaholic anyway, but trying really to putting the phone down at night and like when you have like quality time with people, not being on your phone. And I think that definitely in the past couple of months, it's become more of a pet peeve of mine too, when I'm out with people, and it never was before. Yeah. And I think it's just because the quality time opportunities are getting so much smaller as everyone's getting busier, and life is kind of like coming back to this like full circle moment, like from years before, where it was, you were doing like a couple happy hours a week and a couple dinners, and it's like, okay, well, I've been working like crazy without a social setting, and now social setting's coming back, but I'm still working like crazy. Yep. So it's like, I feel like there's less minutes now than there were years ago. And I don't know, I think it's just everybody kind of naturally became this like workaholic and aesthetics. And when we were forced to be closed, and then, we reopened, and it's like, we're crazy and it's busy, and now social's coming back full speed, and you're like, wait, no, but I'm still, I mean, it took me 9.5 months. It took me to get to this quarter having every other Monday off.
Wow.
And it's like, that's crazy. Like when I'm like, well, I was tired 10 months ago, you know?
The ironic thing is that you're in charge of your own schedule.
Right? I
as
know.
a
I'm
mom.
like, who scheduled me like this?
So
and it's always like, you did.
You did. Right.
You did.
So
This
we
is
need
not
to take
me.
control of our lives.
Definitely.
You know, we are our worst enemies sometimes.
We definitely are.
Because we are workaholics.
Absolutely. I think the other big thing is when I travel, and I know you and I travel a ton.
Mhm.
So ironically enough, funny story real quick, one of the first times that we had been speaking of no time. So we live like 12 minutes apart from each other or something.
Not far.
Like not far. And we had been trying to get dinner for 2 years.
Yeah, years. I
Maybe.
was hoping you were going to say years and not months.
Yeah, no, definitely years. And we are randomly in Miami one night. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're here too. Do you have dinner plans? So then it became this running joke that the only time I ever actually saw you was at the airport or Miami most of the time.
Yeah, the airport lounge.
The airport lounge.
Or Oklahoma City.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, what game are you at? I'll come say hi real quick. But I think, we'll come back to some travel funness here in a second too. But I think, when I'm traveling, I try really hard not to actually like work on the plane because that's usually at least 90 minutes of reprieve that I can like sit and I'm not having to be on my phone. Yeah,
I used to be really bad at that. The minute I would be able to take my tray out, I would whip my laptop out.
Yeah, after the clocks.
After the clocks, yes. You know me too well. Yeah, I am crazy about germs on the plane, so I wipe my tray down. Yes. But my laptop would come out and I'd try and work. I'd be like, this is what I need to do. Now, and I've gotten away from that.
Yeah,
I
it's
read
so
books.
freeing, right?
It's so freeing. I don't even sometimes hook up to the Wi-Fi on my phone because I don't want to hear people's texts or social media.
Yeah, I'm like, sorry, the Wi-Fi was down.
Yeah, it's
just
great.
Landed.
There was this one flight I used to take to Phoenix several years ago, and the plane that they would route didn't have Wi-Fi on it. So it's a 5-hour flight from DC.
I just had one to Dallas. It was the same, and it was so free.
It's so great. You're like, you can't hook up to Wi-Fi, so you have to either like have a cocktail and a book, or just go to sleep. How about that? There's also sleep. We forget about that.
We do forget about sleep. Can you sleep on the planes though?
Yeah, not really.
I can't.
Internationally, I can.
Can you?
Yeah, not domestically. It's not worth it.
So my first international flight was last year. We did Paris for my birthday. Couldn't sleep.
Really?
Sat there the whole time.
I got to teach you how to travel internationally.
My husband snoring was perfectly fine. Like fully laid down, having the time of his life. I watched 3 Christmas movies.
Oh my God. Little medication goes a long way because you need to land and get going.
I'm always so scared about if something's going to happen on the plane, though. Like, what if it goes down?
Well, then you just die sleeping. Don't worry about
Titanic. Oh my gosh. Have you ever had any horrible travel situations like that?
Ironically, I was at a work event in Barcelona, I think 6 weeks ago.
Okay. It was the MERS.
It was the MERS thing.
Yeah.
So I was coming home. By the way, so they had rerouted me to like They were like, oh, you have to go through Frankfurt to Dulles. I was like, no, I want to do nonstop. I fought to get this nonstop flight, and I got on the nonstop flight. Okay. Not last minute or anything. So get on the plane, and we had been out late the night before, typical Spanish dinner, Spanish drinks afterwards. So I'm like, I just want to just recline in my seat and put my blanket on and get comfortable. So an hour into the flight, I see the flight attendant coming down the aisle, talking to each individual. I'm like, oh, maybe she's taking our food order, whatever. Yeah. And she's like, people are like, oh, they're like giving these expressions. I'm like, this is not what I'm looking for.
You're like, this isn't, I already know where this is going.
And so the flight attendant comes and she goes, we need to turn around. We're going back to Barcelona. We're having some engine issues.
Okay.
And so I'm like, I'm on the right side of the plane, by the way. So I was like, is this engine going to blow up? Is this wing am I going to be the first one to get out of the plane? And so, but nothing was happening really. And then they served us nuts on the way back. So I'm like, we're probably not in like dire straits, but can we just get back on the ground?
Yeah.
So we were almost in Portugal. We weren't over the ocean. Not that would have mattered. A crash on land is the same as a crash in water.
I would I'm not sure which one I'd rather. Maybe water.
So, but we landed, and then I had to stay till the next day. It was a whole mess. But like, it is there's a few minutes when they say like, we have to turn around for our landing that you're like, should I contact my family?
Right.
Should I be telling them
Where's my
something.
will?
Yeah, like, is everything in order?
Yeah.
Oh, Troy would kill me.
Yeah. That's always those like fleeting thoughts where you're like, oh my gosh. So we actually, as you were telling that story, I was a couple weeks ago on a flight, and the pushback got stuck underneath the plane, right? So they get on and they're like, I'm really sorry, we're going to be a little bit delayed. The pushback is like the little, it's like a golf cart thing, right?
Yep.
And it like died, like the engine died or something.
Oh, no.
So it's literally underneath the plane. So they're like, we have another one coming, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay. So I'm just still sitting there, waiting, reading my book, trying to relax. So they come, you can feel it jolting around. I'm like, okay, pushback's cleared, we're good. So then we start what I think is taxiing. And then the pilot gets on and he's like, I'm so sorry, we're going to another gate. We, because of the weather where we're going, we need to fuel more.
Oh, Jesus.
So
I'm rolling my eyes.
Well, my first thought is, what would have happened if the pushback wouldn't have gotten stuck?
Yeah.
Like, how is that not like the first check? I was just like, can I get off the plane? I'm starting to get a bad feeling.
It does make you think a little bit.
Or like when you get to the end of the runway and they're like, oh, just kidding, we need more gas. And you're like,
or we would have landed in another city, maybe.
Yeah. I'm like, what was going to happen?
Yeah.
Have that not happen. So
air travel woes they're just teeming out there.
My last flight, did you look at your logged hours or your logged miles for the year?
No.
Yeah. So I did on my last flight in December. I was coming back from Orlando from a conference, and 75,000.
Really?
I know. Yeah. A lot of time in the airport.
Yeah. We fly a lot, but also some of that's for fun.
Oh, yeah. So that's always my balance too.
Yes.
Like any work trip always needs a little bit of fun.
Yeah. And you do a good job, like when you go to your little conference next month.
Yes.
You're going to do a little bit of spa before it starts. That's
exactly.
what you do.
Yeah.
You kind of either do it on the front end or the back end, and you got to reward yourself with
nice
something
dinners,
in life.
Like just
nice
something, little
right.
something. Even if it's 2 hours early in the
Yes, but make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Yes.
Is our point.
Yes. And drink water.
And drink
more water. More water this year, I think.
Less coffee, more water. But I know I'm still going to drink a lot of coffee, so I'll just drink more water as well.
I just had an espresso machine for birthdays.
Beautiful.
It's too much coffee already. But all right, I think it's been fun. We covered a lot of topics.
We did. Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
For joining after a very long day in the OR.
Yes.
So much appreciate it. Hopefully get some water tonight. And thanks for listening, guys. Stay tuned. If you want to follow Dr. Somenek, I'm going to let him give you his website and his Instagram and everything.
Yeah, so you can follow me at Somenek. It's SOMENEK MD. That's my Instagram. And then our website is SomenekPittmanMD.com. So if you have any questions, there's contact us on every single thing.
On everything.
So you won't have to look far. But
and if
thank
you want to
you.
hear anything else I have to say, you can follow me on Botox and Bourbon on Instagram. My company page is Ayana Atelier, AIYANA ATELIER, and website's the same. All right, guys, have a great day.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and comment. Follow us on Instagram at The Aesthetics Injector Gang.